Far be it from me to disagree with the experts, but in this particular case, I actually do. Well, sort of. So the reality of it is that Alex Hormazi has a very great video that comes into my feed every once in a while about the entrepreneur wave cycle and sort of like how it works. And I think that it's a great video. Don't get me wrong, he's absolutely right. But what I think and what I've seen in my experience personally and with the people that I've coached is that his video isn't long enough because the reality of it is that there should be more to it than what he explains. So I'm going to dig into that today. So let's get started. So his video, not to rehash what an expert has already talked about, but the reality of it is that he shows a wave pattern that looks something like this. Now, the reality of it is that I think that this is exactly on par, and this is my experience. This is what I've seen throughout the time that I've been coaching new business people. So basically, it starts off with uninformed optimism. Like, you don't know what you don't know, and you're like, all right, this is going to be awesome. I'm ready to go. And then suddenly you go through and you start getting into this, you start getting into some of your business ideology, and then you realize that there's more to it than just doing the thing that you love doing. There's also, figuring out how to get leads and figuring out how to do this and how to do that and financing and all that other stuff. And suddenly you start to see a downward slope to where there is informed pessimism. So like you've learned and got a peek behind the curtain and suddenly it's like, wait a minute, I'm not sure that I can actually do this. Reality is sort of setting in, if that makes sense. And then you get into what he calls the valley of despair, which I absolutely love that he calls it that, because it's absolutely right. You have this like crisis of meaning. And at this point, it's critical and pivotal. The reality of it is that, like, you could go up from here and achieve your goals, or you can crash and burn and you can completely just dump out. And a lot of business owners dump out right here because maybe they didn't plan properly and it seems insurmountable that they can get to where they want to go. But the reality of it is that if you don't crash and burn, you get informed optimism and you're like, wait a minute, I got the help that I needed. And I think that I'm in good shape right now. And so you get achievement. And that's like the very starter basic of it. Like, this is the first wave. So just so we're clear though, like, we're just getting warmed up at this phase. We've come over our first hurdle. We've realized that what we want to do can actually be a business. And I think that there's more from here. And maybe he does too, but at the same time, I want to explain what I think comes next. So I think after achievement, the cycle sort of starts over again. You get this uninformed optimism because you've achieved what you basically thought you could do, and you realize that there is some proof of concept, like this idea might actually work. I can actually make a business of this. But you don't realize what you don't realize right again. So the reality of it is that even after achievements reached, it's sort of like a new starting line, I guess I would say. So next thing you know, you have uninformed optimism, but then suddenly life or business throws a hurdle in front of you and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have time to do all of these things. Or maybe the product line has changed and suddenly I have to make a difference. So you get over this hurdle and you've got this informed pessimism. You're like, holy crap, I had no idea that the product line was going to completely change. And suddenly I'm not even sure that I can do this anymore. And you get back down into the valley of despair because you're suddenly like, oh man, it's much more harder than I thought it was. And it can be anything that brings you to this point, just so we're clear. And it's going to be over the lifespan, a lot of things. And I think that the real wave pattern looks more like this. And I purposely added the fact that there are some valleys of despairs that aren't quite as deep as others, because some of it, it's like, okay, the product line changed, but it did this 3 years ago. And like, I remember how I got through it. So it's really not that big of a deal. But realize that as you are walking through business, you're going to have these valleys. You're going to have these uninformed optimism and informed pessimism and then achievement. And you're going to have this throughout the life cycle of your business. It's going to happen over and over again. And there are a lot of ways to actually get through this. And I'd like to talk about maybe a couple of them that I have used over the years to basically level out the valley just a little bit, or at least help me get through when the valley gets really deep. Let's dig into a couple of options there. So the first thing that I do whenever I get into a valley of despair is to take a little bit of a step back. I call this a tactical retreat, or a zoom out session, basically, and start to look at like exactly what is going on here. Am I truly facing a problem that cannot be overcome, or is it really something that I think I can get through? And I think that really taking stock, I mean, however you do that, pro con list, or just writing it out, or drawing it out, or something like that, I think that's a very good step in looking at a situation when it becomes a problem. It's like when you're looking for your keys and you stop looking for them and then you find them. It's sort of that scenario here, to where you basically take a big step back and say, okay, wait a minute, is this problem really as big as I think it should be? And if it is, let's define all the pieces of this problem so that I can actually figure out what it is that I can do. So that's sort of the tactical retreat, or the zoom out session, as I like to call it. And the second thing is really just about getting some help. So it can be anything that you want it to be. So you can physically hire a consultant to help you inside of your business. And I advocate for this as a consultant myself. There's a lot of power in bringing in somebody who already knows. It's going to cost you some coin, but it's going to save you in some time, maybe. You can also do the research yourself. You can go through and look at this problem and see what is exactly happening here, and learn everything that you need to learn, and figure it out completely on your own. Or third option here, just copy what somebody else has done. You can always look at other models and figure out, what did that person do when this happened to them, and can I copy that and get that as some of my success and some of my way to actually get through it. And I think with these steps in mind, and then also understanding that it's a building pattern, and then understanding that, knowing when you were in the last valley of despair and feeling how that felt, and then taking the tools and the lessons that you learned from when you were in that first one, and then bringing it to the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and so on throughout the life cycle of your business, is going to be super important, because this way you can constantly be learning, you can constantly get better. And I heard a financial person once tell me about finances, that it should be, picture it as a person doing a yo-yo, but they're walking uphill. So there are ups and downs, but the cycle always goes up. So the business is always getting better, but there's always going to be cycles inside of this, to where you're unhappy or you're extremely happy. The point of business, a lot of the secret, is to make that wave pattern lower, to help your wavelength being a little bit longer if you can, so that you can ride the good times and then get through the bad times, and sort of work to get that as low as possible and as long as possible, so that you can really, quite honestly, be happy inside of what it is that you do, whether it's your own business or your job or your work life or anything like that. I mean, I think that most relationships, most life has this sort of pattern that comes to it. So I hope that this video helped. I love talking about these types of things. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that I'm a consultant, and you can hire me as a coach to help you get through some of these different things. I specialize in a lot of different types of business strategies, so I'd love to talk. My website is linked below if you're interested. And let me know what you think in the comments. It would be great to hear from you. I love hearing from the people that are watching my videos. It's absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite things about having a channel in and of itself. But at the very least, I hope this helps. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.